Not sure if you guys can hear me, but this live here is really going to talk about, the freight brokers practices, their business model, and how they are taking advantage of truck drivers, owner operators out there. Um, we're really going to talk about the entire business, how to operate, and I want drivers to truly understand the importance of understanding the business side of transportation because this is the reason why a lot of freight brokers are running laps around truck drivers because freight brokers understand their customers and understand the challenge that the customers have and they create a solution around it. But us truck drivers, I don't think we understand who is our target audience, what problem they are having, and how we can potentially solve those problems. So this live here is really going to talk about, again, the brokerage practices, how to operate, and also the brokerage business model. For anyone that's out there, just by the way of introduction, my name is Pierre Laguerre, and I am the founder and CEO of a company called Fleeting. We are a venture-backed tech company. I've been in transportation logistics for 2 decades. I started my career as a Class A driver myself. I hauled for XPO Logistics. Then I hauled for Performance Food Group, doing local route, touch freight, humping cases, delivering 1,400 to 2,000 cases in Brooklyn, New York for about 4 years. And a 48 footer or sometimes a 53 footer. You could just imagine doing food deliveries in Brooklyn, New York. And then from there, I realized that, I wanted more as a truck driver. So I decided to become an owner operator. So when I became an owner operator, I started hauling dry van. But when I was hauling dry van, I felt like I still wanted to learn more as a truck driver. And at the time, Wagner College had a course for supply chain logistics, which I applied for the course and, graduated top of the class on that course. But what it showed me was it really showed me trucking on a macro level, right? Instead of showing it to me on a micro level, meaning they show you trucking on a much more higher level, on the supply chain logistics, on the executive side, on how everything is operating. But I was much more eager to learn trucking from the bottom level, right? From a driver standpoint, from being boots on the ground. But it was a great learning experience because, again, I get to truly understand supply chain logistics and truly understand how, this industry operates, right? And from there, I was still eager to learn. So I decided that, okay, well, I didn't want to do drive van anymore, right? Because after I went to that course at Wagner College, it really exposes the broker practices, how brokers run the entire business. So I said to myself, well, as an owner operator, how can I make more money? So I decided to no longer hold drive van and I went into tankers. And I hauled tankers for about 3 years before I decided to start a staffing agency in trucking, which I grew to 2.5 million in revenue under 18 months. And then I also took that proceed and started the trucking company. I started with 3 trucks and quickly grew to 26 trucks in my first 9 months. And also did 1.7 million in revenue in my first year. 16 trucks was company trucks. The other 10 was owner operators. But in 2017, I had a son that was born with Down syndrome. A lot of things happened in my life. And, also at that same year, I was brutally attacked from an attempt carjacking robbery. Suffered some severe injuries from my head. My forehead is not real. I got a titanium plate in my forehead. And I found myself fighting for my life in a hospital. And if I say I didn't want to retaliate, I'd be lying. I wanted revenge. I wanted revenge in blood. But that's when this whole thing right here started. When I was in the hospital saying I wanted revenge, the more I wanted revenge, the more pain that I felt. And one night I said, God, if you let me at this hospital, I would not retaliate, right? If you make sure that I'm not eating through a straw and I'm not on a wheelchair, I will build another business. I will create an ecosystem to where I teach and train young men from marginalized communities on how to become successful entrepreneurs in trucking. And by the grace of God, I came out the hospital 14 days later and launched Fleeting. I became the first black man to raise over $1 million on a crowdfunding platform. And I also raised an additional $3 million from angel institutional investors and continue growing. And now also have Peers Academy, which is part of the promise that I made to God. If I was to get out of the hospital, not on a wheelchair, not eating on a straw, is that I will create this community to empower, to train, to educate, especially young men from marginalized communities on how to become successful entrepreneurs in trucking. Because again, look, trucking took me from a marginalized community and have allowed me to build multi-million dollar businesses in this space. For the past 9 years, I've been operating as a business owner. I've generated over 15 million in revenue. So for me, trucking work, yes, it has its own challenges, but there's definitely ways that we can leverage trucking to change our lives, especially to the young brothers that are hanging on corners, to the young brothers that are looking for opportunities. Again, this is an $800 billion industry heading towards a $1.2 trillion industry. So we definitely have to find a way to put ourselves in position to be exposed to those opportunities. But this is why Peers Academy exists. Now, I'm sorry for this long-winded intro. I just wanted the audience to know exactly who I am. So before anybody think that I'm just an influencer talking about trucking, ladies and gentlemen, I've been in this space for 2 decades. I've drove flatbed, reefer, drive-in, you name it, doubles. I've done them. Hauling food, local deliveries, I've done them. So I truly understand trucking from a driver standpoint, but I also understand trucking from a corporate standpoint. And I think this is what led to this live right here. I believe this is where a lot of truck drivers, especially owner operators, need to truly understand the business side of trucking, right? Because once you start understanding the entire supply chain logistics and how it operates, right? The stakeholders, right? What values do they bring? What type of challenges that they have? And I promise you, as a truck driver, you'll become more creative. You'll have more confidence that you can go out there and solve their problem. But today we're just gonna really talk about the brokers' practices, right? So we all know in 2023, brokers are running laps around truck drivers. Brokers are making a killing because again, they're squeezing truck drivers out of the rates. And truckers, again, they're still responsible to pay for fuel. They got responsible for maintenance. They got to pay insurance. They have so many different expenditures, but you still have somebody that's dispatching them or giving them the load. And that broker, sometimes literally, they're still in pajamas, they're still in their bed, drinking coffee, making their oatmeal, but they are squeezing you on the rate. You, the truck driver that's on the road, not seeing your family, not getting the proper rest, not eating the proper food. You have a broker that's actually taking advantage of you. Now, how can we actually solve this problem? Well, the best way to solve this problem is to truly understand what is the freight broker business model, who is their target customers, what pain point they're having, and how do they solve that problem for their customers, right? So let's talk about this. Freight brokers. What is freight brokers? So what we all know, truck drivers understand freight brokers are middlemen that help shippers, warehouses, distribution centers to find carriers, right? That's at least the explanation of what a freight broker is supposed to do. But in today's world, it seems like brokers are doing a little bit more than just help a driver finding freight. They're actually really taking advantage of truck drivers. So before we go into that understanding the entire broker practices, I think it's best to also understand the history of freight brokers. Freight brokers haven't been around for long. Freight brokers probably came around in the early 80s when trucking got deregulated. Now, prior to freight brokers, right, shippers used to go to truck stops to put their number on a piece of paper on a driver window or windshield to say, hey, driver, I have freight. If you're in this area, you want to move my freight, you can move my freight, right? Those practices for shippers, it wasn't the best practices because shippers do not have time to go find trucking companies to move their goods, right? Shippers want to focus on manufacturing their good and getting their goods to their end consumers. So could you just imagine a shipper having to go to truck stop every day to find truck drivers to move their goods? So this is how trucking was operating prior to deregulation, prior to brokers coming into the game. Now, again, before trucking got deregulated, pricing was all over the place. Truck drivers was making prices as they go. Shippers, the same thing. So there was really any efficient way of actually managing costs and pricing around that time. So this is how the freight brokers was born. Freight brokers realized there was a niche, there was a need. The shipper. The shipper needed carriers. Not only carriers, the shipper needed qualified carriers that can move their goods from point A to point B, right? Damage free, on time delivery all the time. So the broker realized that the shippers had a pain point. The shippers didn't have a way to find vetted carriers to move their goods, right? So this is where the broker business was born. So brokers was born to help shippers. Remember, keyword. Brokers was born to help shippers find carriers to move their good. Brokers wasn't born to help truck drivers find shippers. This is why, again, I tell drivers all the time, the shipper is not your friend. The broker is not your friend. The broker is not your partner, right? The broker is just a party. It's a relationship that you get to leverage throughout the day on your operation, but he is not your friend. And what I mean by he's not your friend, but he's also not your enemy. He's not your friend simply because the person that broker is looking out for, guess who that is? It's a shipper, right? It's a shipper. So the brokers knew that the person that they came to solve for was the shipper, the person that had the goods to move. They didn't come in this game to solve for the truck drivers. They leveraged the truck drivers to start selling the services to shippers, right? So how does that work? So for example, A freight broker, in order for a freight broker to get a contract with a shipper, that freight broker have to demonstrate to that shipper that they have carriers in their network or owner operators or you in their network to move their goods, right? So this is how the brokers are running laps around us. Again, remember, before a broker can get a contract with a shipper, that broker have to show the shipper that he have a certain amount of capacity. He have a certain amount of carriers and owner operators in his network. So this is why, again, as a driver, when you go on a load board and you're trying to get a load, right, from a broker, although it's going to be your first time moving that load from the broker, what do they ask you to do? You need to sign on with us as a carrier. Here's a carrier packet, sign it. Every time a driver sign a carrier packet for a broker, that's capacity that you are adding to that freight broker business. So, for example, if I start my brokerage firm and I got one truck, I'm very limited to the type of shippers that I can go after, right? But if I go out there and get 10,000 truckers to sign under my brokerage firm as carriers, well, guess what? I got 10,000 available bodies that I can leverage to sell to the shipper on why they should give me the contract. So when you get 10,000 truckers signed on as a carrier under your brokerage firm, the broker use that capacity and then go tell the shipper, look, I have 10,000 carriers in my network. This is where they're located. This is the type of equipment that they move. We can move your freight from point A to point B, right? And that's how the broker get the contract with the shipper. There's, of course, there's a little bit more things that goes in there. There's negotiation, there's pricing, there's all these things that go in there. But we're just talking about on a higher level. That's how the broker really get the contract. The broker leverage you, the owner operator, as capacity to go sell that capacity to the shipper, right, to get the contract. Now, after the broker get the contract from the shipper, or for multiple lanes or a single lane, that broker now is on the hook to find a carrier to move that good. Because why? Remember, he sold the shipper on a promise that he got 10,000 carriers in his network that could move their goods. But when that broker can't find nobody to move their good, they become desperate. That load ended up on the spot market. So this is what they say: 20% of total U.S. freight are moved on the spot market, and that still make up to about a $250 billion market opportunity, right? Meaning, again, 20% of those that sits on the spot market, guess what? Those are loads that brokers agree to move for shippers, and they couldn't move them at that time. They couldn't get a dedicated carrier. They need to put it on the load board. So why I'm saying this? Well, the reason I'm explaining this is I want drivers to truly understand that what the brokers are doing is really nothing crazy. It's not like it's something out of the world. It's not like it's something so hard. The brokers are leveraging capacity. And I'm saying this to say, in 2023, why is it that us truck drivers can't do the same exact thing? Why is it that us truck drivers don't want to understand or learn the business of trucking to provide them same value or them same solutions to shippers? Just like I explained, a freight broker's job is to solve a problem for a shipper, right? What is the shipper's pain point? The shipper can't find good carriers. The shipper can't find reliable carriers. The shipper can't find, carriers that have enough trucks, right? The shippers are looking for capacity. So that's a big challenge for the shipper. So the brokers solve that by creating the freight broker business model, by getting truck drivers to sign on to their brokerage firm as carriers, and then they use that capacity to get the contract from the shipper. So in other words, the freight brokers are solving problems for the shippers. They are not solving problems for the truck drivers. But what would this industry look like if truckers actually took the trucker hat off and put a business hat on? Guess what we will do? We will be able to actually control our own lane, our own relationship, our own dedicated accounts, because we understand who is our target audience. And if you ask every driver on the road today who's their target audience, they probably don't know. Well, driver, your target audience is the shipper, is the manufacturer, is the distribution center, is the warehouse. Those are your target audience. The question is, how do you get in front of them? Well, you get in front of these people by truly understanding their pain points. So this is why I talk about truckers. We have to learn how to polish ourselves to become professionals so we can go and build those business relationships. If we are waiting on freight brokers to build those relationships for us, it comes at a cost. It comes at a 20%, 30%, 40% cost on what the freight is paying. So I'm saying this to say, us truckers, we can do this ourselves. So the broker business model is not hard. It's all about capacity. So again, why is it that 10 truckers can't come together, right? And say, hey, look, man, you got a truck, I got one truck. Look, we're gonna get 10, 15, or 20 drivers together. You could do two things. You could either put all of them under one authority and then create that capacity and then go sell to a shipper or shippers to say, hey, I got 20 trucks on my network. If you give me dedicated lane, if I get your contract, this is the things that we can do. This is what we can execute, and this is the lanes that we run. 10, 15 truckers can do that, again, if they say all of us going to run under one authority. Or the other way I can do it is the same way. 10, 15, 20 truckers, again, can come together to create that capacity. But what I would say do is build a brokerage firm. The brokerage firm is a separate entity from what the owner operator is already running. If you have your LLC, you keep that. So you get other 20 drivers to come and join your brokerage firm. It doesn't cost that much to start a brokerage firm, ladies and gentlemen. I know it probably sounds crazy. Believe you me, it will probably cost you less than 10, 15 grand to start a brokerage firm, especially if you're going to do it with your own drivers. I could show you exactly how to get partners, factoring companies to help you get your thing factors a lot faster. But the reality still stands. 15, 20 truck drivers can come together and create that capacity and go out there and build those relationships with shippers themselves, right? So again, what we need to understand as truck drivers, we need to understand who is our target audience, what problem they're having, and how can we bring solution to them. And that's all brokers do. So if us truck drivers can truly understand the meaning of business, if truckers can truly understand the meaning of supply chain, if truckers can truly understand the meaning of their target audience, if truckers can truly understand the importance of providing solution to your target audience, man, listen, truckers, we will be wealthy in this industry. I find it appalling that in 2023 that we are still at broker's mercy. I find it appalling that in 2023 truckers are still talking about they don't know if they can make it, for a week, for a month, or even retirement. So again, what is it that we're willing to do to change this narrative? And me personally, I feel like it's education, is putting our business hat on. Let's stop thinking like truckers and think like business individuals. I find it again appalling that a truck driver buys a truck and become an owner operator and still treat himself like a company driver. You don't do that. The minute you purchase that truck, you are no longer a truck driver. You are a business owner, and you need to carry yourself as such. And you need to really understand who is your customers, what their problem they're having, and how can you solve it for them, right? So again, this is how the broker practice works. Now, this is how the broker's business model works. Now, as far as the broker's practices, I would love to actually do some spreadsheet. I'm not sure. And again, by the way, this is my first live on YouTube, by the way. So please excuse me. But what I really want to do is show you guys a spreadsheet on how brokers are actually taking advantage of truck drivers. I'm not sure if this is going to allow me to do it here, but I can. Let me see. No, it's not letting me. All right. I don't see no options for that. But anyway, hold 1 second. So, hey, I'm not sure if it's going to let me do the spreadsheet, but the spreadsheet, I was going to show you exactly real live, the breakdown on numbers, right, between shippers and brokers to show you exactly what the brokers are getting on the lane, what they're giving it to the drivers for, what they're keeping, and what they're not giving the drivers, right? So maybe what I would do is I would do a video separately explaining that and then post it. So I thought the live was going to allow me to actually do the spreadsheet and talk over it, but unfortunately it's not allowing me to do that. So what I will do, I will make another video and talk about the broker business practices, show you exactly what they bill a shipper for a lane, and show you exactly what they give a driver out of that rate and what they're keeping for themselves and what they're not telling drivers. So again, this is yours again, Pierre Laguerre, founder and CEO of Fleeting, also your favorite instructor at Pierre's Academy. Again, I've been a driver for 20 years. I find it very, very disappointing that us truck drivers cannot find our footing in this $800 billion industry heading towards a $1.2 trillion industry. And you can rest assured, this time I will lead a mission of 10,000 truck drivers to start solving some of these problems on our own without begging our government, without begging freight brokers. We're going to take matters into our own hand. And when I talk about taking matters into our own hand, And no, I'm not talking about going on protests. No, I'm not talking about blocking no roads. No, we're going to put our money together. We're going to create our own cohesive network. We're going to create our own ecosystem. We're going to train, we're going to empower, and we're going to teach drivers how to truly become successful business owners. Within that 10,000 trucker network that I'm talking about building, I promise you in 10 years, we need to turn this into a $10 billion empire, and every truck driver should retire a millionaire in 10 years. So make sure y'all stay tuned. Make sure y'all subscribe to the Piers Academy page, because this is where I will be pushing all my content moving forward. And if you're on Instagram, you can find us on Piers Academy, or you can find me on my personal page. The name is Pierre_Laguerre5. So really appreciate it. Look, if you guys have any thoughts on what I just shared, please feel free to share your thoughts. If there's anything that I could do better, please feel free. Or if there's anything that I need to talk about to educate truck drivers, please leave a comment below. Let's do it. Let's do it together. We can grow. Trucking have changed my life. I believe it can do so for millions of others, but especially the owner operators that's in this industry today. I think it's about time that we come together and build our own mega house worth billions of dollars and retire wealthy. So make sure you follow. Make sure you share this live with any truckers in your network. Peace.